edition of the Mindset Game podcast, and I'm your host, James Roberts. Before we get started with this week's show, first off, let me take this opportunity to welcome back the regular listeners. And if this is your first time listening to the show, I hope you enjoy this episode and decide to subscribe to the show. And on today's show, I've got Dafydd Evans. He is the head coach of Swansea University and Swansea City Academy, and he is the former head coach at DC United's under-20 and under-23 team, as well as the head coach of DeMatha Catholic High School. So welcome to the show, Dafydd.
Thank you, James. Thank you. I know we've tried to connect for a while, but I'm glad we've finally connected.
So before we delve any further in today's episode, Dafydd, can you talk to us through your journey to where you are today?
Yes, I presume as far as a coaching perspective or everything in general, James?
Let's delve into a little bit in general.
Okay, yeah. West Walian born, a Welsh speaker from Llandysul, West Wales, avid footballer from a young age, but loved all sports and participation. Stayed local, really. Did my first undergrad degree back then at University of Glamorgan, it was called, but now USW. Did an undergrad in business while I was actively playing football, really, James, in all of West Wales and South Wales, in the Welsh League, and building up to what was then called the League of Wales, or which is now called the Welsh Premier. And really enjoyed my studies, but really was still more kind of enjoying my participation of football and playing, etc. That came short. Had a bad injury after that undergrad. I played up in London, came back, played in the Cardiff area and South Wales, got injured and was stuck really with thoughts of a career, James. So kind of used the background of my mother at the time. She was a headmistress, a teacher, and sports still wanted to be the focal point of what I did. And that's the teaching background from my mother gave me the idea of teaching phys ed and getting into teaching as far as on that side. And I went to Bangor University and did a PGCE bilingually at the time in Welsh and English. And did that, and that took me to the States. I got offered a job after qualifying from Bangor to go out and start my coaching career in football. I did some of the earlier badges, C and B, UEFA with the Welsh FA before I left. I was 23 at the time, 24. And that took me out to the States and started my coaching career, really, for a couple of years with a coaching company called Challenger Sports, British Soccer, who are one of the bigger summer camp soccer companies in the US. I was a director of coaching with them for a couple of years in the year 2000 and 2002. I was introduced to a private school in Washington, D.C. On the East Coast called DeMatha Catholic High School, which is predominantly a school for athletes or want-to-be athletes in collegiate level or professional level in the US. So I got involved with them in 2002, became a teacher there, and I stayed there for 14 years as a teacher and a head coach in football. And that's really what I kind of settled there, and that's really when I really got into my coaching and thought this could progress as a career.
And in terms of obviously coming back to South Wales now and being obviously the head coach of Swansea University and also being academy manager at Swansea City, how did that kind of come about to kind of, obviously, as you're talking now on the show, you saying you're very settled in the US. Why the change?
Yeah, it was. I was there a long period, in total 16 years in the US, and it was a great experience, first of all, socially, and for a young lad from West Wales, a Welsh speaker from a rural area, to to go and do that. I only planned to be there a year or two, to be honest, but I kept getting good job offers, and I made the most of situations that I had, and it was a wonderful school. I stayed there. I was also involved at that time with DC United for the final 6 years, coaching the under-20 team and the head coach of the under-23 team as well in the MLS. So they were great experiences, and it was just a longing of home, to be honest, James, which is common with lots of Welsh people as I get to know people over the world, but and some family difficulties as well. At the time, my mother was very poorly 2 years ago, so it all added up. I'd achieved a lot of goals that I wanted in football and coaching in the US and developing programs and players and what have you. But I was missing Wales. There's no ifs or buts about it. And I was coming home often to Wales a couple of times a year, each year. My mum got poorly 2 years ago, and I always kept in touch with everyone, as you've just asked, with the Welsh FA and Swansea City. I'm a big Swansea City supporter. I have been since I was a boy, so I always had close connections. I'd always done my licensing also with the Welsh FA as well as the US Soccer Federation. So I was never really that far away. I always regarded, Wales as home and America as travel. I never really regarded it as America's home. It was almost a working holiday, if you want to call it. It always seemed as if it was going to be a working experience for me. I never once thought I would fully settle there for the rest of my life.
Okay. And in terms of the level of football, obviously stateside, obviously been there for a long period of time, did you see that there was a massive progression and improvement in the quality of the game being played out there?
Yeah, I think it's come enormous way, to be honest, since I arrived in 2000. I think the potential was there as soon as I saw it in some aspects. One, just because of the demographics, really. It's a melting pot of, so many different cultures across the world, which so many of them have a passion for football, or as they say, soccer. So you could always see the potential was there, but often, as you see, probably with developing other countries and other sports like China, etc., the country was almost so big. It was always going to take time for infrastructures to be solved and sorted out. And I still think they have a lot of challenges with that, but the potential of human resources is so strong. They're already, gaining a lot of ground, and with more structure and more experience, I think they could be a real force to be dealt with in world football. But it remains to be seen when and how they do it. But they come a long way. There's no doubt about that.
And obviously, being engaged with the DC United and the MLS, what is your take on probably like the players finishing their careers in the US? And probably there's more players now, be it, I think there's a Brit not long ago in the media, obviously over here, who, because he didn't get any job offers career-wise with after academy football in the UK, he went to do his schooling in the US and has kind of progressed through. I'm trying to think top of my head. I think he plays for New York City FC, and obviously, do you see players, if they possibly don't make it in academies over here, looking at their athlete long-term development plan, maybe looking at a different option, and maybe obviously going down the collegiate level and possibly looking at their education a little bit more, and say, because obviously in the UK we do have bursaries and whatnot for the sporty type academics, but it's nowhere near on par to what the US could offer.
Yeah, I think it's a great topic, James, that you've mentioned there, and I think it's a topic that's just going to, increase in interest, really. And I think it's got a lot of value. I think the passion for football in this country is so fantastic, and I love it. It's wonderful all the way through the youth and generally in culture. And I think at the same time with that passion, I don't think the reality is clear enough, probably in the probability of a career in the UK, if that makes any sense. The percentage rate, obviously, of players that, come through and gain a full career out of football from all youth levels is very, very small. So, yeah, I think, the best case scenario for any parent or any young boy or young lady thinking about going into the game, by all means, put everything into it. By all means, dream. By all means, work hard. But, from a 16-year career in dealing with top student athletes, and I mean in all levels, MBA, NFL, MLS, and I lectured and taught and coached all these guys at DeMatha, which was a factory for athletes, and these were elite athletes, but they had a far greater respect for academics, regardless if they were going to make it in their career or not. And that, one of the reasons for that was the pathway was naturally towards collegiate first. That won't happen here as quickly, obviously, that always collegiate effort first. But I think what would be wise, for young athletes in this country and parents a little bit, is to just have a little bit more touch on reality and at least try to back themselves up with, a stronger academic, perseverance in school. That will always give you then a slightly stronger, safety net as an option to be a collegiate athlete in this country or the US. But obviously, if you just gamble all on your athletic situation, then you could leave yourself in a tricky situation moving on. But I think it's a fantastic topic, and it's quite weird when I got, in discussions in the US or interviews, it was almost the reverse, right? Where the grass is greener, where the football people or the soccer in America were so envious of the European model, thinking that fast-tracked maybe the one or two or three elite players, but they wouldn't have a grasp on, obviously, the appreciation of their model, where possibly the 90 or 95% obviously have a stronger bias also towards academics that would give them obviously a couple of options moving forward, athletically or academically.
I think it's a good model, and it was one I've been taught, obviously, from my career, is to, it's kind of a backup plan to a certain extent. How I use my personal experience, it was very much. Right. I didn't like that. Like your story you talk about it's what do I do if sport does go wrong? Obviously, I was still in school. I've been about 15, 16 when I had to kind of decide, what am I going to do? Be it I get an injury, get dropped. Obviously, when the career actually does come to an end down the line, that's something you probably don't think about at that age. You're thinking, you're going to last forever. But I think the American model is probably a good one because, like you said, they put their academics first. It probably sets you up for life in one way or another, because if you don't make it in the sport, okay, you've got that network as such within the academic field. You probably, I won't say necessarily would get a job for definite, but you've got that work ethic behind you from the sport, and think you're good. Good communication skills, teamwork, right, etc. Which businesses love to hear on TV. And
time management. Time management is so key for an athlete. That it's usually comes on par with studying. Time management is about discipline. All those things can be self-learned skills that can be passed over, obviously in any athletic career as well. And you do see that. I've seen so many athletes that maybe might start off with not so much the skill set athletically, but they become so mature and strong because of high other demands in academics, they tend to be more organised and driven, and I've seen situations where they're the ones that actually do then succeed athletically because they seem far stronger, far more mature, time management, they're more driven, a lot of situations. But it's very difficult to, you tend to generalize because you have to in these type of discussions, and it's a difficult one to be certain because there's so many different variables for different kids in different cultures and countries. But what's been brilliant for me, James, coming back, because I had one memory, obviously, of football here when I left, which was 16 years ago, but to see it now, it's come a long way. I think the clubs here now, though in Britain, do a brilliant job compared to what I remembered. I just look at Swansea City now, the setup in the academy, James, is absolutely fantastic. And I think one good thing they do, which was different obviously to the past when they have a full-time academy, and obviously the connections of a Premier League helps you with resources because of finance, etc. But to have an in-house academic system in the facility, built into the facility, just handed really to showing our players at the academy, our young men, how important academics is. Because they tend to stay one day a week with us at the academy, twice a day, and then they have a day of school with us. We're there as coaches. They see the classroom. It lends itself to helping us. Academics is here. This is just as important as you going out on the field right now. And I think across the board, that's helped our student athletes to get stronger at Swansea. And it's a good way forward. And, then you have the coaches on the field straight after the passing. How did class go? And I think you're bringing both a little bit closer to each other. And these are young men at the end of the day, and they need guidance, and they need to be shown. I think, a lot of clubs have come a long way, and I think they're doing a much, much better job, I think, of underlining the parallels and the need for them to perform in the classroom and obviously on the field.
And in terms of the link with the university, obviously the listeners probably don't know my association with the university as such. I spent 5 years down there. But how
I heard.
Obviously progressed from, it was very much my sports science department, obviously worked with the Osprey, the football club. But how has that kind of progressed now? Because looking at your Twitter account, it's very much, I would say, interlinked and intermeshed now.
Yeah, I think it's getting closer. Last year was only my first full year really there, so if I'm completely honest, I'm still kind of really learning. It's a big university. I'm still learning departments and etc. But I think overall, yes, it's starting to gel. I think the sports science department is doing extremely well now and getting a very good British and European kind of reputation, which is wonderful. But we're trying to link in everything, obviously, all different, academic courses, the students, the sports science, and then the sporting teams. And again, it's all these things take time, but I really, really think and hope that we can move it forward. And it has helped in Swansea. There's no doubt that we're two quality, as you just mentioned there, with the Ospreys and with Swansea City, and the more kind of respectful and professional organisations that are similar, they can come together. Hopefully, you can help each other push on.
And in terms of, I've seen, obviously, through looking at your Twitter as well, the university team is now in the league pyramid system. Is how would I say this, the long-term goal of the club to maybe replicate something that Cardiff Met has done and obviously progress through the leagues?
One thing's for certain, I've got huge respect for everything that Cardiff Met have done. I think it's a fantastic model, and strangely, I did my coaching science masters at Cardiff Met a couple of years ago part-time while I was coaching at DC United and DeMatha at DC. So I was going back and forward for 6-8 week blocks for 4 years and working full-time in the US. So I kind of was on that journey with him really and coached with him at Cardiff Met through the Welsh Leagues, and it was just great to be a part of it. I knew the reputation of Cardiff Met but huge respect for Christian and Robin and all the players there. So I'd seen that at first hand. And then, to be perfectly honest, James, I had no idea there was even a club at Swansea University when I started talking with them with a partnership with Swansea City. I was fully aware, obviously, of the Bucks programme. And it was only in the first meeting or two that I was even made aware of it. And what was interesting, it took another 6 months for me to find out that there was actually a successful team here at the university in the Welsh League, Division 1 at the time, in the 80s, at Swansea University, that actually developed a number of professional footballers. But for whatever reason, and I'm still trying to find out, but that kind of enterprise died, I believe, in the late 80s, early 90s. And it's a great story that the students here for 4 or 5 years before I arrived really built that club back up through the lower leagues in Swansea to the point where, you know, when I came in a year ago, we needed to win the first division to get into the Welsh League, which, you know, was one of the targets and one of the goals we achieved, you know, last year. So, yeah, absolutely. What Cardiff Met do is fantastic, but they're a very different, you know, type of university to us. So as much as we'd like to potentially get to where they are, James, you know, by knowing both organisations, we won't get there by doing the same as Cardiff Met, if that makes sense. We're a different type of university, and we'll have to do it our way, if that makes sense. But huge admiration and respect for what they've done at Cardiff Met, and I think it's a great example for not just us, for any university program.
And I know, David, you've got to shoot off to training in the next few minutes. So last question before we wrap up the podcast. If you had to summarize this episode into one sentence, what would that be?
This interview, you mean, James?
Yes.
Enlightening, enjoyable. Compliment to you. I'd rather interview you, James, on your career than actually talk about mine. But I think it's a conversation, or you've asked questions that will grow in interest, I think, over the next 5-10 years. You've talked about academics, you've talked about the student athlete, and you've talked about different models in sport. And I think all those three things will evolve quickly, I think, over the next 5-10 years. So I think you'll be able to interview many similar type of people, I think, and have the conversation progress.
So once again, David, thanks for coming on the Mindset Game podcast.
You're welcome. Thank you, James. Congratulations on your career and your work now. It's been good. I've been reading some of it recently. It's been great.
Thank you very much for that. So I hope training goes well this afternoon.
Thanks, James. The sun is out in Swansea, so yeah, it's a good day. It's a good day.
Well, it's God's country, isn't it, though?
That's right. That's right.
All right, then. Ta-ra now.
Thanks, James.
Thanks. Bye.
Thanks, bye.
And before I forget, I would really appreciate it if you would be so kind as to leave a short written review, as it helps to get the podcast more notoriety, and it would be more visible in future to others, and thus helping more people, which my guests and I are all about. Once again, thanks for listening, and I'll catch you next time for another episode of the Mindset Game podcast.